Welcome to the Climbing the Charts podcast. I'm Angie Lawless, and I'm here with my co-host, Brandon Miller.
Today, we are honored to welcome two representatives from the Tennessee House of Representatives, Republican Representative Todd Warner of District 92 and Democratic Representative Aftyn Behn of District 51. Representative Warner has been a member of the House since 2020, and Representative Behn was elected to Representative Bill Beck's open seat in an interim 2023 election after Representative Beck's untimely death. Welcome to the show, Representatives, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks so much.
So, Aftyn, I believe we met a few years ago. I think the first time I remember it, at least, was at the 5 spot through a mutual friend. Since then, however, we've become friends, crossed paths at multiple political events, and you've even joined our trivia team a time or two to bring home the gold.
All right, nice. And
shout out to Three Crow, RIP.
I couldn't be more excited to have you guys here. Todd, while we don't know you well yet, I have thoroughly enjoyed speaking to you on the phone and this morning, and I think we could become fast friends. I really like it.
Same here. I'm looking forward to this, and I think we can sit down here and have some great conversation about some issues that we're fixing to tackle in the General Assembly.
So excited to hear what's coming up.
Because this is Music City, we like to start this out with an easy one. In the words of Chris Stapleton, what are you listening to?
I'm a Morgan Wallen fan.
Yeah.
Morgan Wallen.
That's good. What's your favorite song right now?
Shoot, you got me there.
Well, then I'll just bail you out. Do you sing all the lyrics to it while you're driving, or?
Yeah, I sing some, probably hum more than I sing.
All right.
I
like it.
Well, I just returned from Ireland on Tuesday, and I heard a ballad every day, but I think the song that I have is ingrained in my mind is, I believe is it Fairy Tale for Christmas, the Pogues, Shane McGowan?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Classic Christmas song, so I've been singing that, yes.
I think our business partner, Steve, really loves the Pogues. Has for a while.
I remember being there for New Year's one time, and it was mostly country music in the pubs, which I was very surprised by.
It was also, I was there as well, and it was never daylight.
Yeah,
it's pretty far. Everything closed at 4 p.m. and it was
it's pretty far.
And a lot of country music. Okay, before we dive into sort of some substantive issues here, we want to give each of you an opportunity just to kind of tell our listeners a little bit about your background and how you have each come from being born at some point in the past to where you are today, which is serving as members of the Tennessee General Assembly.
You don't have to tell us actually being born. Just pick up where you want.
Yeah. Just
okay.
I'm a little minute or two.
Again, Todd Warner from the 92nd District,
and can you tell folks where that is?
That is Chapel Hill, Tennessee. All of Marshall County and the southern part of Williamson County. Now, we went through redistricting, 2 years ago, and my district changed significantly. I did represent all of Marshall, South and West Lincoln, all the way down to Ardmore, to the Alabama line. Then it went across, and I caught South Lincoln County, Southern Franklin County, and Southern Marion County. So when we redistricted, lost those 3 counties, and I picked up the Williamson County side of Spring Hill City, and I come across through Bethesda, back down 31, and back down
so you're adjacent to Pat Marsh.
I am.
Right? Okay.
Pat would be to my east.
Okay,
yes.
Great.
Yeah. And I am a grading and utilities contractor by trade. I have about 30 employees. I grew up on a dairy farm in North Marshall County, right above Chapel Hill there. The oldest of 5 boys. Married to my wife for, I think, going on 33 years now. I have 3 children. My kids, Patrick, Kathleen, and Kaysen. Then my oldest son, Patrick, is married to Sarah. And we all live there in Chapel Hill.
That's awesome.
Great small town.
Well, so I was about to tell you this story before we, started, but one of my favorite memories is being on the Duck River, and we had several canoes, and we had a dog in one, and there was a baby and a mama deer that were crossing
the river, and
the baby didn't make it out. I think the dogs were maybe swimming. That's right. The dogs were swimming. They were going after the deer. It scared the deer. The mama deer gets out. The baby deer is still there. And one of the girls in our group, Kristen Williams, shout out to Kristen, got out and tried to give this baby deer CPR after it
didn't
was
make
not
it.
alive. Yeah.
It did not make it.
No, it didn't make it. She carried it out. It was an
terrible.
amazing picture.
But I live my farm is right there on the Duck River, so if you ever want to come canoeing, you're welcome. You can come. You can put in at Horton Park and actually float to my place. Have a place to take out, and it's about a day's trip. It's a nice trip.
Maybe you and your wife go with us.
Yeah, love to.
That'd be great.
Yeah, love to.
Can I ask a question? So how did you decide to run?
Our district was lacking a true conservative. And, the country was in chaos. What happened to George Floyd was terrible, should have never happened. And I believe in the right to protest, but I think it should be done peacefully, and just hated to see everything that was going on, and decided to run. Took on an incumbent, and we were fortunate enough to win.
Wow, you primaried an incumbent.
Yes.
That's impressive.
Not easy to do.
No, not in Tennessee. So well done.
So Aftyn, you've got a great story. So hit us up with that.
So I'm a licensed social worker, and I was working at the United Nations when Trump was elected, and much like you, felt compelled to come back there, to run for office eventually. But I moved back to Tennessee and got a job with the Tennessee Justice Center, which is a nonprofit that helps people enroll in Medicaid, our TennCare program here, and was out in rural communities in Lincoln. I had a group in Lincoln, Fentress, Humphreys, Houston, and I would go out there and talk about the impact of Medicaid cuts on rural hospitals. And actually, the first event I ever organized, I just found the graphic for it. It was a rural hospital closure forum at the Madison County Library in Jackson, Tennessee. And so that was the start of that. And then worked for a national political organization. In 2019, I was arrested at the legislature. And then I helped to organize the events outside the Capitol during the Tennessee 3 protest. And once again, I felt like I wanted to be where you all are, and making laws. I've been a lobbyist, I've been an organizer, an activist, and I wanted to be on the inside, at least for this election cycle. So I decided to run. I did not take on an incumbent, unfortunately, because Representative Beck passed away, but I had a pretty competitive primary and ended up winning by about 680 votes.
Representative Beck, you mentioned his name, great guy. Hate that, what happened there, and hate it for his family. And, we were praying during that time. But he was a great guy. He sit real close to me, one aisle over on the House floor. But he always kept his cool. He was a laid-back type guy,
Yeah.
And I always enjoyed talking to Representative
We had
Beck.
some real estate closings with him over the years because he kind of
great
doubted
guy.
a little bit.
Great guy.
Yeah.
Is it not like that normally? People don't normally keep their cool?
Yeah, they pretty much. It gets out. You'll see some excitement every now and then. But I sit over there with the Democrats, and I'm kind of known down there. I guess now they, I'll call the question after, there's been, I'll give it some time for debate. But when it starts getting a little testy, and you can see people's feelings, and everybody's kind of getting a little irritated, it's time to call the question. We know where those bills are going when we get to the House floor. You know, they've already been through committee, they've been vetted, and we know.
Plot twist: when you have a supermajority, you always know the outcome. No, I'm just kidding.
that is very true. Very true.
And we'll get to that. Okay. Give me some grace for a second because this question is kind of long, but it's very exciting. So I wanted to start off with everybody's favorite topic: sex. Okay, according to a March 29th, 2023 memorandum, the House Workplace Discrimination and Harassment Subcommittee found that GOP Representative Scotty Campbell violated the legislature's workplace discrimination and harassment policy. Around that time period, it appears that taxpayers spent a minimum of $9,000, but that it's not exactly known how much because there were some other expenses associated that haven't come out, to relocate a 19-year-old female legislative intern that was the subject of this violation of this policy. So it appears that there was no consequences from what I have found for Representative Campbell until the News Channel 5 story was picked up on April 20th, which was about 3 weeks later. Representative Campbell resigned just after that report, and then 2 hours earlier had stated that he was not going to resign. So it appears as though he was not going to resign, was steadfast in that until the news broke. The moment that it broke, he resigns. And this subcommittee has knowledge of what's going on. And I believe that that Speaker of the House, Cameron Sexton, has said that he did not know that. I don't really know what information gets passed from committee, but it now appears that 3 days after this resignation and News Channel 5's report on it, that another complaint was received against the chairman of the GOP, Representative Jeremy Faison, as the result of a lawsuit that was filed to demand that the state open the records from the Scotty Campbell investigation, as well as to see how much money was spent by the taxpayers on the investigation. Chancellor Russell Perkins, while denying the opening of the records, did make a note that there were certain materials that had been brought to his office, and one of the documents that was brought to his office was a complaint was dated April 5th with an allegation or with an alleged victim's first name containing 2 pages that pertain to the complaint, along with the redacted and non-redacted personal files of the Tennessee House Republican Caucus chairman. Since then, Speaker of the House Representative Sexton has stated, and I quote, "Contrary to the serious inference included in the order, no complaint has been filed against Jeremy Faison." So just to, start off, I think, it seems as though the Speaker of the House, Sexton is saying that you need to believe him or you need to believe the judge, right? Because the judge is saying these documents were delivered, there's a complaint. I think the fact that it's so closely, it doesn't say a sexual harassment complaint in the order, but the fact that it's so closely related to the Scotty Campbell investigation has people making inferences that it's also another sexual harassment case. And I think if you're, maybe, if you guys want to comment on anything of that, that's fine. But I think, if you're an outsider, you're seeing these struggles that are between kind of the state and the city of Nashville. But I think as you really start to dig in, it seems like it's kind of a nonstop Jerry Springer and sort of, cover-up show within the General Assembly. So, I mean, how does this play out? What's really going on down there? And how should, the constituents demand that their representatives uphold the oath that they have taken?
On the Scotty Campbell case, I'm for transparency. I believe that the taxpayers should always know where their money's going. And at the same time, I think we should protect that victim and get that victim some help if they need it or whatever they need. We should always do everything we can to protect the victim. And there's ways to do that. But I think some of this stuff that should be released. What really happened, what was said, and if we can do that and still protect the victim, I think that's what we should do. Now, Scotty Campbell, he came in when I came in, which would have been 4 years ago, got elected, and he was a good friend of mine. And I think Scotty was told if he didn't step down, now this is what he told me, if he didn't step down, that he would be he would be ousted like the other two was.
Was that before the news story broke or after?
I think that was probably after the news story. Don't hold me to that, but
yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was after, because I talked to him that morning after he stepped down. But if you're ousted, you don't get a chance to keep your insurance.
Okay.
You lose that. And I think Scotty was really concerned about not having no insurance. So he resigned before, he was ousted.
And let me ask you this: if this isn't disclosed, let's say the news doesn't pick it up, do the taxpayers ever discover? And even still, it's an unknown amount of money that was paid to this legislative intern. I mean, paid to help her relocate. I don't know that anything was paid directly to her, but do the taxpayers ever find that money trail?
From the way it looks to me, they don't.
Yeah.
There's a fund. It's my understanding that the House, that the Speaker has control of, and that money is spent out of that. And I don't know a lot about it. I hadn't dug into it. That may be some legislation that we need to try to figure out, and where we can do something that keeps the identity, from being leaked or being out there of the victim, but it also lets the public see what really happened. What did someone touch someone, or did someone just make a comment, or what? To me, there should be different levels of it.
But I do like the transparency.
Let me ask you this: what it feels like, and because I approached Representative Beck, who was on the ethics subcommittee.
Yes, he was
during
on that.
Yes, with
that committee.
Representative Leader Camper, when this all blew up, and what he communicated to me is that the rules in place of the ethics subcommittee perhaps provide a veil to shenanigans that are going behind the scenes. And therefore, what one might deduce is that they are leveraging more rigid rules to hide behind. Do you think that's happening? Is that...
I'm not aware of that committee or the rules of that, but it very well could be. I mean,
Well, I think what's curious is that when this all was happened in April or so of this year, it seemed as though Representative Sexton was saying that there was going to be someone take a look at the rules and help balance that out a little bit more, like you were saying, Todd. And I read at least one story that said that we haven't seen anything going into this session that has addressed that. And it certainly seems like, given that this information, was just released on Representative Faison, whatever the outcome may be, that this is still pervasive, and yet it hasn't been addressed since April. So I think people are kind of wondering.
I think with issues like sexual assault or sexual harassment, that there is some deference paid towards the victims in this. However, as an outsider and now an insider, that I do think that House leadership uses rules to either quell dissent or cover up activities that they may not want to see the public. And I, like you, Representative Warner, I absolutely believe in government transparency. And I think the public deserves to hear these details, especially when there are tax dollars being spent.
I agree. I mean, the public deserves to know everything except the victim. And if we can give them that information without exposing the victim, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I mean, this is the public democratic body, not the NSA or the CIA, where we have national security secrets. I mean, I think most Tennesseans, are gonna side with transparency and sunshine law disclosures, and I think that's something we can all agree on.
Yes.
Well, and I think we would be remiss to not point out that it was the same time. I think the vote to expel the Tennessee 3 was on April 6th. So in the middle, right in the middle of these complaints are being filed, the subcommittee, the ethics subcommittee meets, I think, on March 29th, April 3rd, the new complaint about Faison, if there is one. We've got the Tennessee 3 being expelled for what Faison seemed to call, decorum in a sacred house, in a CNN interview. And why wasn't there, some process giving there before going straight to expulsion? But I think the bigger question is like this, bipartisan, nature, like how, and the supermajority. I mean, how do you get past that so that we get something done that matters?
Well, if I could start, I think and granted, I would just like to provide an anecdote for your listeners. The weekend after the expulsions, I traveled to a rural summit in Michigan, and I was picked up at a rural airport in northern Michigan. And I walk out and I see the guy holding the nameplate for myself, and he walks up to me and he goes, "Was the second Justin expelled?" And I'm just like, what world am I living in? I go, and so for a lot of people across the country and across the world, I was the press liaison during the Tennessee 3 protest, and I was receiving calls from Italian national television, et cetera. What it felt like, and I'm sure it's very different than your positionality in that moment, for me, as well as many other people across the country, it was the embodiment of what has happened when supermajorities execute the will of the minority. And when you have 3 democratically elected representatives, and as I described it, and maybe Representative Warner, you would say otherwise, they crossed an arbitrary line on a floor in a body that they are an elected representative in. And it just felt the enormity of the situation did not match the action of, the misstep or whatnot. Now, I understand that there was, a lot more hostility. I was not there. I don't want to speak on behalf of you or the other representatives that are on the floor. But just to say that, and I think the steps leading up to this are really important. Their mics were silenced when they were trying to state an opinion. Their access was cut off in committee rooms.
There. I mean, we have rules. We set rules. The Democrats vote on those rules. The Rules Committee votes on them. Then we all go to the House floor and we pass those rules. They had been given chance. And if I had it to do, I voted for all three of them to go. And if I had it to do over, knowing what I know now, looking back, I might be a little bit different. And I'll get into that in a minute and explain why. Well, but we have rules that that we follow. If we don't follow the rules and we don't stay, keep decorum, we will never get nothing done. I mean, you've seen how it got there during special session a little bit, and I know it gets frustrating when you're the minority and you can't get nothing done. But Tennesseans have made this state red. The General Assembly didn't make the state red. Tennesseans have voted in what they believe in. And that's red right now, and it may change.
But if stuff like Scotty Campbell is going to the ethics subcommittee, why wasn't this referred to a subcommittee to review?
It was kind of like the nuclear option.
Yeah,
I've
been down there 4 years, and I'm still learning. That's a great question. I don't know why. I do know. I think our leadership did meet with their leadership before this was done, and they were given warning after warning after warning about get them under control, and their leadership has told our leadership that we can't do nothing with them. You have to do what you got to do because we can't do nothing with those three. Now, this being said, if you'll go back and you'll take the whole session of this past session and you look at everybody's time speaking on the House floor and in committee, you'll see that those three spoke way more than anyone else. So when you say their mics were silenced, they was after 5 minutes or when they got off topic, but they got as much time. They spoke more than anyone else in the General Assembly. And but going to the expulsion, at the time I thought it was the right thing to do. We were told, we're going to expel them on Thursday. We knew that Metro would definitely point Justin Jones back. We knew that Memphis.
When you say we were told, who was the we?
The caucus was told. And we were told that we knew that Justin Pearson would be back, and that Gloria would probably be back. But what we didn't expect, or what I didn't expect, is that we were going to see one of them back again on Monday night. Had I known that on a Thursday when I voted for expulsion, I don't think any member would have voted for it. And I can't. I'm not speaking for any other member or speaking for leadership, but I feel like that we were told that we would they would be reseated in January. No, and they were reseated. I think Jones was gone 3 days, and I think Pearson maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I'm not sure on him, and Gloria made it through.
Quick sabbatical, Tennessee sabbatical.
Yeah,
Tennessee sabbatical. Well, so is there? I mean, I guess Aftyn, for you coming in, on the Democratic side of things, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there are 75 representatives on the Republican side, 24 on the Democratic side. How do you get something accomplished?
Well, sorry, just to reflect on the Tennessee 3 piece. I think what's been really interesting to me, and I've been reflecting a lot upon, I ran on joining the Tennessee 3, and we're in my district right now. It's one of the most progressive, highly engaged, highly educated districts in the state. And I ran on joining the Tennessee 3. And I what I didn't realize is that that's like a Rohrbach test. It means something different depending on who you say that to. And so to some of my colleagues, it meant that I was going to be disruptive. To the Republicans, it meant that I was going to be screaming in their faces as soon as I entered Cordell Hall, which is not how my mom raised me. But
you do have a loud voice though, and I have heard you scream there.
Run the tape of me being pulled out by state troopers in 2019.
Not how her mom raised her.
Yeah. But I think in this moment, what that means is that I believe in democracy. I don't believe in what feels like I'm going to use the A word, authoritarian. And
Not what my mom taught me the A word was.
But I believe in that. And so for me, it meant, joining the Tennessee 3 meant fighting for a better Tennessee, which I know we'll talk a little bit about the legislative preview. But in terms of your question, which was...
Yeah, like how do you get anything done? I mean, you're one of 24,
Yeah.
and to the extent that people stay party lines, and there's 75 people on the other side.
Well, for example, my grocery tax bill, the
Love
Democrats.
the idea. Say we're not that far apart.
Let's get into it.
But in a super minority, you play a role. And so my role right now is harm reduction. And so I'm in the background. What I plan to do is reducing harm for a lot of the communities that I care about, women seeking reproductive access, people who identify as trans. And that's my role that I play right now in a super minority. Now we have our bills. I'm carrying the abortion bill, and you're gonna laugh, Representative Warner, but on our side, the abortion,
I like your effort.
The abortion ban is so bad that my bill repeals 19 pieces of that regulation.
So well, tell me, hit on a few points that's bad about it. Tell me what's bad.
Oh, I love this.
I don't know the whole bill, so tell me what's bad. You can probably educate me a little on it.
Well, we've I would say it's one of the most extreme in the country. It doesn't allow for exemptions for rape and incest, nor fetal anomalies. I think I've heard from obstetricians that they feel a lot of liability, that lives are in their hands. I know women that are personally leaving the state to seek reproductive access. And I think what I'd like to communicate to you, as well as members of your caucus, is that the line that's touted by Republican leadership is that we're a very free state, and it just doesn't feel free to me as a young woman, or for a lot of other communities here.
I mean, I'm very much pro-life. If a woman's health is in jeopardy, I can understand that. If it's done in early age, or even I guess that's a tough one for me. The incest part, rape and incest. The first thing we should do is get that victim some help. The second thing is, if it's done early, before a heartbeat is detected, I can see maybe me getting there. That's a tough one for me. But for the idea that we're going to do late-term abortions in this state, to me, is nothing but slaughter.
In my day job, I do politics, if you will, on Senate races. And a large part of my work the past year has been organizing rural and small towns around abortion ballots in Ohio and Kentucky. And I don't know if you've seen this, but when abortion is on the ballot, it overwhelmingly wins, and it outperforms. So, for example, counties in Kansas voted 75-25 for Trump, and then flipped during the abortion ballot and voted 75-25 for access. So I think for your party, it's going to be an issue that you all are going to have to grapple with, especially at the national level, because it's incongruent with how people feel. And I think you have a lot of sympathy and empathy for people who are struggling. And, I would ask you to, relegate that empathy towards, women who are, and, oftentimes women who have to get an abortion in the 7th or 8th month, they have wanted to keep that baby the entire time, and they have nurtured it, and they've done everything they can, and then something goes wrong. So, but I know I am carrying what we call the North Star abortion bill, which is the one to undo all of the 19 pieces of legislation.
So how are you going to get that passed?
No, but in terms of, as a super minority, your goal in running a bill like that is to move people to the other side. Now, if I can transition to the grocery tax, which I think this is a really exciting. So every year, every session, the Democrats bring forth a bill to eliminate the grocery tax. And I don't know historically if the Republicans have. But what I'm hearing from my district, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
We give you 3 months this year.
Yeah. Well,
That was the grocery tax holiday.
yes. 3 months, and yes. However, in other states, I think what I've heard across the state, and especially from rural districts, people who are low income, is that food should not be taxed because it's something that everyone needs. And what I would love to see, yes.
And we're one of 13 states that still has a grocery tax.
Yeah.
So that's,
Let me ask this question. You may not know. How many states that has done away with the grocery tax or do not have one, but they have an income tax?
That's a great, yeah. So we're one of, a lot of them do have income taxes as well. We are, I think, one of 2 or 3 states in that 11 that does not have an income tax that taxes food. I don't have a fiscal note, but my goal in a lot of my bills, because I know that's where a lot of your party members get hung up, is how much is it going to cost? How's it going to be paid for? And I do have a way to pay for it. And so...
How?
Yeah. So corporate accountability. So 60% of corporations in the state of Tennessee don't pay taxes. And for a lot of those companies, we don't know if they pay taxes at all because we don't have enough transparency into that. But I think what's important for you as a small business owner is that you're probably paying more in taxes than the CEO, than Amazon or FedEx or Google. That's a big problem for me.
So are you talking like 50 million?
So for example,
companies?
John Dyke, who owns the Turnip Truck grocery store in Davidson County, maybe this year will generate over $50 million worth of revenue. He pays more in taxes than these mega multinational corporations, which in my mind is inappropriate considering how many hundreds of millions of dollars we have given them as tax dollars, right? Taxpayer dollars.
We'll agree on that.
So where would the top line be, do you think, for corporations? Like, would it be like only corporations who are grossing above?
So instead of a corporate minimum tax, which is what a lot of states have, it's the way we're going to pay for it is through something called worldwide combined reporting. So what that is what you do is you calculate all of the revenue that Amazon or Google makes all across the globe, and then you pull out the Tennessee portion, which we'd have to file a bill to figure out what that amount is. Yeah. And then you tax that, and that goes straight back into Tennessee. So that's about 500 million. And then the other 300 million comes from, because it's about 700 million that we would need to
pay for it.
The other part is via an enterprise tax. And so the state of New Hampshire, which doesn't have a state income tax, live free or die. Thank you, New Hampshire.
Or went to college, great place.
Where they have all the Subaru Outbacks.
Yes,
so
yes,
if you can't find
yes.
one,
but
they're there.
They also, they have a lot of attitude like Tennessee when it comes to taxes. But they established a value added tax. It's a VAT, and it's like a corporate minimum tax, but there's different thresholds. So anyways, I do have a way to pay for it. And I know probably, your caucus can't get behind that, but what I would like to tell you, as well as other Republicans that may be listening, I don't give a shit how this gets done. People want it to go. Just eliminate it. I call it the Cameron Sexton eliminates the grocery tax, and we can all live free and die. But I don't care. I just want this to be. It is. I've received hundreds of emails and calls across the state from people who do not agree with my politics, who say this is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And Aftyn, so is it? I'm just looking here. 4% tax on groceries, and then. Is that the state?
So there's a state tax on groceries, and then there's a local tax. And so the full amount we have it paid for, right?
7.5?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And those locals, they're definitely going to holler when you take that, when that portion of tax goes away. Because I've heard some pushback when we do I think the locals still get their portion when we do the tax free. I don't know if the state reimburses them or
the state does reimburse them.
They do.
Yeah.
I thought that was correct, but there's a lot of small towns that really
So
count on that.
I love hearing what you're saying, Todd. I think this is, it is one of those things. I remember I watched the last Republican presidential debate, and one of the lines DeSantis, of all people, is talking about is how people are getting to the grocery checkout line and having to put back some of the groceries.
I've seen it in my hometown. Couldn't pay for it.
And I think, one of the goals, there's an organization in Tennessee called Think Tennessee. And one of its goals, is to kind of get people to talk about what they actually want to achieve as opposed to labeling it with a political label. And I think if you can do that, you can really accomplish some things.
I agree.
Right, exactly. Because I think, again, you guys have a lot more in common.
At the end of the day, I think our goal down here as legislators is to do what's best for Tennesseans, all Tennesseans.
Yes, 1,000%.
Okay, so for Representative Warner, your time in office had not even really begun when the feds raided your home and business. We talked a little about this before we kind of went on air here. We understand that nothing has come out of that. No charges were ever filed against you. What should people know about what happened, and what does it tell you about how things are just operations happening here?
Well, that's a tough question. And I guess, first of all, let me say I would have never been, my home and business would have never been raided had I not ran for office and been elected. I beat a U.S. Senator's brother. I don't even want to call his name, but I beat it. You can figure out who it is. I beat his brother. And, I'm sure that had a little bit to do with it. There's no doubt it was an inside hit job that, that they used the federal government to try to take out a duly elected new member of the Tennessee General Assembly. And it's nothing more than that. I know there's some trials and stuff that are fixing to come up, and I hope the public and the people in the General Assembly and the people in this great state pay attention to what really went on. And I tell you what, I really hope the news media does a good job of covering when it comes time for this stuff, and they can get a lot of answers answered here in the next few months. Could
for your listeners, it would be helpful for me because, obviously I was on the other side of this in 2019. But what just simply is going on right now? Because I think, for those that haven't been following it,
I can't speak for the other people that were raided at that time. For me, I fully cooperated with the federal government and the FBI. They've had access to my finances. Of course, they got them when they raided my home and my business. But since then, I've been fully cooperative. I've got nothing to hide.
Yeah,
I've done nothing wrong. It should have never happened. And
no charges. Nothing's ever come up.
Nothing's ever happened to me.
Yep.
Yeah. And I wish it would have never happened. It put me behind the 8 ball down here. And that could have been their goal. I don't know, but it's made it hard on me down here when I first come in with carrying that, having to answer those questions and carry that. So.
Well, and I think I saw something, maybe it was by Representative Faison saying that, he wanted to know exactly how you thought leadership had attacked you. Do you want to respond to that, or?
Well, probably not at this time. It's not probably a great time to respond to that. But you can follow the mail, the hit pieces. When I ran after we went through redistricting, I ran in my new district. I had two guys running against me. One of them by the name of Jeff Ford really attacked me. He really run mailers with pictures of the FBI, me getting raided, that kind of stuff. And, we beat his ass. He come in dead last. So it is what it is. But I can assure the voters of the 92nd District and the constituents of this great state of Tennessee that I've done nothing wrong. And I think the truth's going to come out.
What, for each of you, what's your top priority in the current session?
I've never been one since I've been here to carry a bunch of bills or try to get a bunch of stuff passed. I believe in smaller government. I want to protect our rights. I'm for freedom, defending freedom, and just let's keep government out of our lives. I know that the government plays a role, but I'm not for growing it. Every year I've been down here, and I've kind of been a little disappointed in this, and they blamed it on COVID a few times. With the state had extra money that the feds give them, but our budget has grown every year since I've been here. And I think we do need to spend money in our infrastructure across the state. I think education, and we put a lot of money in education. I think we need to spend money there, but I wouldn't mind seeing some cuts in some of these departments across the state, and maybe go towards the grocery tax. That would help all Tennesseans.
What's a department that you think would be good or that could stand to take a cut?
Not offhand. I hadn't looked at the numbers or remember from looking at last year's budget, but I'm thinking there's some. Yep.
Department of Revenue. Wasn't there an audit? I think they ran an audit that said they operated a certain threshold and they were bringing in another like $20 million. slew of audits that we can use to do that. Yeah.
And so, Aftyn, is the grocery tax your top
Well,
priority?
speaking of freedom and the government getting off my body and out of my bedroom, carrying a few of those bills. And so I don't believe in government intervention in medical decisions. And so 2 of my district bills, one, I'm carrying the abortion bill, but also I ran on protecting trans children. I have a lot of families that are concerned about the health care that their trans community members are getting. And so
bold move. I mean,
not for my district.
Right,
That's the thing.
right.
We were in this, this district cares deeply about some of the most marginalized communities in our state. But go ahead. Yeah.
Again, I'm terrible about interrupting, but if I don't say what kind of what's on my mind.
Yeah, please do.
Have you polled your district to see on that issue whether parents really believe that that we ought to be doing transgender surgeries on children that young?
So the question asked, I think, the real life issue that a lot of my voters are dealing with is that they, some of their children who have decided with their parents that they want to receive testosterone are unable to get it and are having to travel out of state to get medical care. And so that's a big concern in my district.
Any idea roughly? I know you probably can't get that, but I come from, no,
it's okay. It's okay.
I can't comprehend it. I mean, I'll never support it. I voted against it. I appreciate I don't forget who carried the bill in the House, and I think Leader Johnson carried it over in the Senate. But to me, a child at the age of 8, 10, 12 years old, is going through, maybe they're hitting puberty, maybe they're mixed up, they're confused, they don't know what's what. But why would we I just can't get there. Why we would think it would be okay to change the sex of a child at that age?
So I think it happens rarely. That's the thing. When I talked to the Vanderbilt medical lobbyist, I mean, they were looking at maybe one gender affirming surgery, which you're using the surgery. But the more important issue right now is that young kids can't get the medical care that they need. And so that's an issue.
I mean, why should they need that kind of medical care? Why should a little girl or a little boy at the age of 12 years old need?
I don't know, because I'm not a trans. I don't know.
It's hard. Maybe it's something I'm missing. But
no. I just want to acknowledge that I think around and I can talk about this because I was talking to a constituent. I had breakfast with a constituent before this. But I think since the Covenant School shooting, that especially with the shooter being trans, that there is a lot of anxiety around trans people, and I look at them, from a historical perspective. There's always been trans people in our communities and in our world. And they're some of the most vulnerable kids in our state. And so, I know that there's a lot of concern that, kids are just kind of being funneled into Vanderbilt and they're cutting off appendages left and right, and that's just not the case.
That's not happening.
Well,
just the data shows that's much more of a
that's an anomaly.
It's an anomaly, yeah. And it's a little bit of just I think a lot of times it is a kind of a scarecrow tactic that really does kind of fuel the culture wars. When I think most people I think have a more moderate view that sort of just wants to be careful. Is that what I hear you saying? Is that,
yeah, I mean, I don't want us to do that. I mean, we had a young man, I guess it was a young man that came and during all that and told her story that he had transitioned to a young lady, and it was the worst thing that had ever happened. And he talked about being what he thought or they thought that they were misled. I had a constituent from Spring Hill come into my office and she pled her case. Her daughter was transgender and wanted to be. Didn't really want to be male, wanted to be identified as it, or identified as nothing, and I just I can't comprehend that.
It is funny. I don't know if your kids are like you have small kids, but the kids that I'm around, like they use these pronouns and they're seamless, and it's like I don't know what you're saying. I don't know what the pronoun X means, but like.
Well, I guess that is what I hear Representative Warner saying, and I think that there are a lot of people that have this is like, do I really want to give a 10-year-old, let's say, child testosterone. Is it just a moment of peer pressure? Is it something on TV? But I guess the question is it too early to make that decision in case they change their mind when they become
That's kind of my question.
Adult.
And if they want to do it at the age of 18, I'm not against the LGBT community or the gay community or the transgender or anybody else. If they want to do that at the age of 18, God help them. I'm all for them doing it. That's their thing. I don't agree with it, but I don't think it should be government's place telling them they can't do it.
But what about the Republican governor of Ohio, DeWine, just vetoed a trans bill, an anti-trans bill
that would have protected children.
He said that it infringed upon parents' rights.
Yeah, I'm from parents' rights, but
what if parents decide that they want to do this?
And this is, to me, is what's really fascinating, right? It's because the idea of like freedom and rights, right? There's always two sides of it. It's the right to do something, and it's the right to be prevented from doing something. And they're very similar concepts. Like the right to control your body can also be viewed as a duty to protect you from doing that, right? So it's that part, I think, is where it's very complicated.
It's a tough one, and
it's a tough issue.
If fall back in believing that God created man and he created woman, and that's what you are. We may not like it, but I guess this day and time we can change that.
What about man, woman, and it?
Yeah. I don't think it was ever mentioned.
I'm just messing with you.
I know you are.
And that's what we want. We want vigorous debate, because I think that's how we understand each other.
Yeah,
right? We talk about things that are not comfortable to talk about.
We need to agree to be able to disagree.
That's right.
I'll take everybody to dinner one night. And let's get into the covenant shooting. You talked about the transgender a little bit there. I was one of only one or two representatives that sent a letter and requesting that the manifesto be released, and I still think it should be released. We should know. Let's protect the victims. Let's protect anything that would give a copycat a motive. But let's really tell us what was going on in this person's mind, so we can really try to address. We had the special session. We spent millions of dollars, and
again, transparency.
Yeah, that'll be the question here. So I do think the question on every Nashvillian's mind now is how the General Assembly will stand up and take action or won't to reduce the likelihood of another mass shooting in Tennessee, especially at a school. Firearms have now exceeded vehicular accidents as the number one killer of children. Like, that's not an opinion. That is a statistical fact. Yet very little seems to have happened in the wake of the shooting here. As we know, Governor Lee, who I've been critical of in many ways, but I really applauded his efforts in this area, was pushing for support of new red flag laws for Tennessee. But even with that special session that you just mentioned, it seems no meaningful legislation has really had any chance of passing. And what can we expect to see as we're about to see a new session kick up?
I think you'll see some more school safety stuff. We did pass some, and I can't quote the bill numbers or the exact bills, but I know we appropriated some additional money for mental health. I know there was some school safety money in a bill that gave each school the money to hire SRO officers for every school. If I'm not mistaken, Metro Davidson County, the last I had heard, had not taken advantage of those funds. I think their reason, and you may can comment more on this, that they cannot find the officers to do these jobs. But I think if we continue to blame the firearm, we're missing the point. We're missing the opportunity to really fix what's wrong. I'm gonna talk here in a minute, and if I say too much, just tell me shut up or interrupt me like I interrupt you.
This is so
I'm a
good.
listener, so
I love it.
I'm 52 years old. I graduated high school, Forest High School in Chapel Hill in '89. I didn't go to college.
the year I was born.
The year he was born. It was a great year.
He's like, pause.
Yeah. That being said, when I was in high school, going to school, we deer hunted before school. If we killed a deer, we took it to school, we dressed it, we learned in ag class, shop class, how to butcher. We cooked that deer at school, and I know this probably sounds redneck as hell, but that's where I was from down there.
I had home ec. I did
I took
sewing,
home ec too, but the
cooking.
point I'm trying to get to is, I had a loaded deer rifle, in the back window of my 74 pickup truck hanging on a rack, probably 2 of them. It never crossed my mind or anybody's mind to get that gun out and shoot up the school or want to inflict harm on anybody. It wasn't happening anywhere else around at that time either. So my question is, I think we need to figure out is what has changed in society to make us want to do that much harm, to create that much hate in our hearts. What's changed? What's going on? Why do we want to inflict harm on innocent people, young, the most vulnerable in our society? I mean, what's changed?
But what about the the assault rifles? I mean, I guess I also, my papa had the rack above the bed and never thought.
My dad had a gun in the truck at all times.
Cheap gun racks, and when you hit a bump, they'd fall off and hit you in the back of the head.
Yeah.
So I grew up in rural East Tennessee.
I don't think the assault rifles. I don't know how much you've fired weapons or been around guns, but a 12 gauge with double aught buck in it will do 10 times the damage of what you might not get as many rounds, but it's gonna. I mean, if you ever shot a 55-gallon drum, it just disintegrates it.
I think that's the point, though. Is like the rounds.
That
right?
being said, and I was going a little bit farther. I had a nephew that was murdered up here in Nashville. It's been about a little over 2 years ago. He was killed by a boy in Bedford County. He brought him to Nashville. Was going to try to make it look like a drug deal. The guy that shot my nephew was Judge Rich in Bedford County, General Sessions Judge. His son was out of prison on parole. I think he was going to serve a 6 or 7 year sentence. He was out in 3.5 years. Been out 4 months. They had been friends growing up, all through high school, played ball together, run around together. To make a long story short, he brought him to Nashville, shot him 3 times, left him on the side of the road, came back, shot him 2 more times in the back of the head. That being said, no one in my family or his mother and dad or none of us has ever blamed the firearm. It was not the gun's fault. He was a criminal. There was no way he could, he didn't buy the gun legally. He had bought the gun, or somebody had given him the gun. And I guess the point I'm trying to make, we can put all the laws in place we want, but criminals are going to do bad things, and they're going to break laws, and they're never going to follow laws.
I guess my question would be though, if I took a 20 gauge into Covenant, I'm probably not going to do the same damage.
You're going to get 5 rounds off.
Yeah.
You're going to get 5 shots. The normal 20 gauge will hold 5 bullets.
And so I think, to my mind at least, it's time. It's slowing down. You're right. I mean, I think bad people are going to do bad things regardless. But I guess the question is can we slow them down long enough to get a response in places where our most vulnerable are? But I mean, in other places too.
Yeah, and we I know there's bills passed where schools can have their glass replaced with shatterproof glass. We've done the officers. I think Senator Pody has a bill where the teachers are going to, and I can see that bill passing where they wear the monitor. They got 3 different buttons they push. 1 for a disruption in class, 2 for maybe a fight or an altercation with the teacher. And the 3rd one is, maybe an active shooter or go straight to 911. I've seen it, but I can't remember exactly what it does. But I think there's there's stuff like that we definitely can look at.
But if they push that button and somebody's still got an assault rifle, they're getting off a lot more rounds. I mean, can't we blame the gun in that? I mean, I know we're still blaming the person, but can't we blame the type of gun in that case for the
when
mass
the federal
damage?
assault rifle bill expired, essentially, we have seen mass shootings skyrocket in the United States. So I agree, there's definitely a culture, mental health component to this. But the guns themselves, I have a 8th grader. I remember she did a report last year, and she had to argue that gun laws don't make a difference. And her conclusion was actually kind of that they don't, because she basically found that, the states like Vermont and Western states that have almost no restrictions on gun laws have very low mass shooting rates because it's rural. People are using guns for hunting, but in the states that have the most restrictive laws on guns actually have some of the highest mass shooting rates.
Look at Chicago.
And it's because the laws are trying to address the problem, and there's more of a problem to address.
You'll also hear the argument: the gun-free zones. That's a place for crime. I have a bill that got rolled to this year's calendar that would allow college students that have an enhanced gun carrying permit to carry on campus. Right now, our professors and our staff at our college campuses can carry on campus, but the students cannot. This bill would allow, if you went to the 8-hour course and to get the enhanced gun carrying permit, that would allow a college student to carry on campus. I mean, we can sit here and argue or back and forth all day, but
is that the bill where they were also where I read about intoxicated police officers could carry, or is that different? that was a caption that legal got put on there. Basically, I think the argument they were trying to make is if an off-duty police officer was off duty, he could carry while intoxicated. There's already a law that says when you're intoxicated on the books in the state that you're not supposed to be in possession of a firearm. So that was just kind of a headline. They thought it out.
Sometimes when they put the caption on these bills,
I gotta watch for that.
You won't get it. You can work. The media picks up on that and. They run with it, and you really need to get the bill language and really read into what the bill does.
Well, let's back it up and just say, would you be for or against a bill that did try to limit assault rifles, high caliber clips? Because I think that's sort of the debate. We can have a debate about restricting gun laws, but I think that's really the hard thing.
I would be against any bill that restricted our Second Amendment.
Okay.
So let me jump in because I want to make sure that the Democrats know I'm here and that I'm doing my part. Okay, so I want to provide some context to things that you said. So the first one is what you mentioned when the federal piece of legislation expired, that guns became more accessible than when you were growing up. Mm-hmm. So we have this proliferation and mass utility of guns on the market. So we're not just saying that people use the guns have always been present in the United States, but I'm saying that as soon as this bill expired, much more guns saturated the market, and therefore there are more guns on the streets now. The second thing is that, and you will argue against this, but red states are some of the most violent states in the country, in terms of gun deaths, in terms of violent crime, in terms of sexual assault. These are violent states. So guns in southern states are not making us more safe. The second, or the third, you said that, people have always had guns, but it's the bad people that use them and the criminals. And a lot of gun deaths in Tennessee are from either bystanders or, for example, the student who was shot on Belmont via a flying, a bullet. These are deaths that could have been prevented. And it's not someone, mass. There are a lot of mass shootings, but inevitably there are a lot of, indirect deaths from guns that could be prevented. And I would just like to say, the Democrats, and I grew up hunting too. I'm from East Tennessee. My mom and dad are both handgun carry permit holders. In fact, my dad, before I came to the session, was like, okay, are you sure you don't want to take my gun? My mom was like, Bruce, she has to do everything legally. So no, I do not have a gun right now. But the Democrats believe that we don't want to take I do not want to take all of your guns, but I do think we should have safe storage laws. Police officers across the state are begging us to remove the guns and car bill. And
if we could do away with gun-free zones, those guns wouldn't be left.
That doesn't address the problem. It doesn't address the problem.
Yeah.
And then obviously red flag laws, because I think there are, especially, and I'm against releasing the manifesto. However, I understand that you want insight as to what that person was thinking. And I guarantee that there were moments where community members or family members thought this person probably shouldn't have access to a firearm. And we need to make sure that they are not able to access that.
And we know that from just the reporting.
So, and that's a red flag law. And I think that applies to those who are dealing with domestic abuse. And so what I think you care about your community, you care about your voters, you care about their health and well-being. This is not, the radical left trying to remove guns. It's saying, hey, things are bad. People are dying. Let's try to make this better for, if we're going to have guns, then let's make it better for all of us.
Yeah. What about cracking down on criminals? The guy that you mentioned the Belmont, the guy should have never been out of jail. The system failed us.
Well, I'm an abolitionist, so
the system. In my nephew's case, the system failed us there. The guy should have been locked up.
Yes.
Yeah, the guy. I mean, that was so sad. That guy should have never been out.
Okay, but further upstream, he shouldn't have had access to a firearm. So how do we mitigate that in the future?
Well, he's a criminal. He couldn't legally have access to it. He broke the law to get it. And, then the only other way to fix what I think you're saying is you pretty much got to do away with all guns.
I did not say that. Did anyone hear me say that? Did you ever say that?
You didn't say that, but you know they can't have access.
I can't shoot any more beer cans after.
But here is the reality: there are more guns in the U.S. than there are citizens in the U.S. We have more guns than people, and so you're right. There is a practical problem of, this isn't Japan or England where there's just not that many guns. So all these guns are already in circulation, right? So then we got to figure out, okay, even if all gun making stopped, right? There's no more guns being made. There's still, a few 100 million guns in the United States. So I do think you're right. We got to figure out what do we do about the fact that they already exist. They're in the circulation, assault rifles, which were banned for a pretty long period of time. That was a Bill Clinton, one of the first things he did when he became president was got a bipartisan assault rifle ban that bans certain guns and also high capacity clips.
And now they can you can buy different parts off the internet and you can
That's right.
But it is true. I guess they call them ghost guns.
Yeah,
you can build one and you don't really, none of it's really ever.
But if you do Google like what happened, if you just look at Google mass shootings in the U.S. when the assault rifle ban expires, that's kind of when the chart starts looking like this. So there may be, I think it's debatable, like what is really going on that's causing that spike. But there's no question that this last year was the deadliest year for mass shootings in the history of the United States. So like, what do we do about that? And I think that's really I think everybody's goals. What I hear you two saying, which is great, is you have similar goals. I think reducing school shootings in Tennessee is a great goal. How we get there is really where the dialogue has got to happen.
Well, and I think depending on what I've spent some time here just looking at different articles, but I think no matter where you look, it seems to be that Tennessee is between the 3rd and 10th most dangerous state in the country. So I think whatever it is, it's worth a healthy, vigorous discussion, as you stated.
And I was shocked. I mean, I've been at the legislature every year since 2017, and I was really blown away by the intransigence of legislators this year as they're looking at these West Nashville moms who have not been politicized. And I really think your party will struggle this cycle in dealing with this issue because you have moderate Republicans who want gun control and
that's bad. Come on.
What?
The 50 spot right there.
Who carries around $50 bills?
That's bad.
The president.
That's
Grant.
Classic.
Okay, what do you want to bet?
The bet is that you lose seats across the state, that the Democrats lose seats, that the Republicans don't lose any seats.
That's hilarious. I will absolutely bet you $50. I'll bet you that.
Or we can bet dinner, lunch, or something, just to make it fun. No, I mean you may have a point there in places,
and it's not your district. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying in some of these competitive House seats, of which I will flip those seats.
You're gonna flip them.
That's my expertise, if you will. These people care about gun control, and we're seeing, and additionally, Representative Warner, once again, may not be your district, but kids all across this country and this state have been radicalized through having to deal with these shooting drills, and they grow up in this world, and now they're going to be politicized, and they're going to be running for office and making Republicans' lives miserable. Do I want that for you? No, I don't want that for you. She's just looking out for you to live your best life.
Okay, so we're not going to solve this today. We'll just let's wrap up here with one question, and then we'll do a few lightning rounds and call it a day.
All right.
If you guys have time, we're a little over an hour.
Fine. No, go ahead.
Time?
Hit what on what you want to hit on.
We're just going to hit on some education.
Okay, so the last big topic we'll talk about is education, which I think is, obviously very important to everybody here. 2019, Governor Bill Lee of Tennessee proposed the current school choice program called the Education Savings Account, and it was approved by one vote in the House. Now the governor has proposed the Education Freedom Scholarship Act, which would offer at least 20,000 Tennessee students a little over $7,000 to attend a private school of their choice beginning in the 2024-2025 academic year. The grants could be used at any private school in the state and with most homeschools. We understand that the funding would be put out of the general fund and that the costs beyond year one are perhaps blurry, but there's no testing or other accountability measures being proposed at this time. Is it your understanding, and what is your stance on this bill based on the information that's been released so far, which again is not full?
It's going to be hard for me to comment a lot on it, but I will tell you when I ran, the first time I ran against, I was against school vouchers. I represented rural Tennessee. Those school districts need every single penny they can get. I've been a supporter of public education from day one, and I want to see this bill, I guess, before I comment on it a lot, but let me tell you this, I'm not for growing government. If we're going to hand out money, again, for, and I'm for school choice, I'm for open enrollment. Go where you want to go. But it's the government's place to pay for it.
I'd rather that money go to helping fund the grocery tax.
Yes. Let me tell you what I think is going to happen. They're going to make, and you're going to about to see how this works down there, and I don't like it. It's when they take a bad bill or something that's don't have a real good chance of passing, and they put a couple good things with it to get it to pass. So what they're going to do on this bill, and this is Todd Warner, not knowing anything, what I see happening on this bill is we're going to say, hey, you folks that want to go to private education, we're going to give you $7,000. You homeschoolers who want to homeschool your kids, we're going to give you a property tax abatement or something like that. And you folks that are in public education that's really, really working against this bill and don't like the governor's idea, we're going to put $500 million into public education. All this is going to be lumped in one bill where if you vote against it or I vote against it,
you're against public schools.
You voted against public schools.
Right.
They did this.
And we might sweeten the pot a little more. Let's give the teachers a 5% raise across the state. Now you voted against teachers.
And they did this last session when they tethered teacher pay raises to the lack of protections for teacher bargaining.
Exactly.
And so Democrats voted for teacher raises.
I was for the teacher raises, but I could.
Oh, you were for unions? Okay.
I could, I can done away with the bargaining, But I had to support it because it had the teacher raises in it, and I'm not going to vote against our teachers. I think they're underfunded, they're underpaid. I agree. And I wouldn't sit in a classroom right now. You couldn't pay me enough to sit in there.
I think Governor Lee, Republican leadership is, maybe they know this and they just don't care, but our rural communities, this money is built into their revenue streams. It is built into their budgets. And no one, there are very few public schools in some of these communities, and they're going to have to travel 40, 45 minutes to go to a private school that maybe doesn't even exist now. The other element to this is for kids with disabilities. It's really important that, especially kids that are on IEPs, that have issues, that are protected, that have those protections, and they're able to go to public school, that money isn't then pulled out from our public funding system and then goes to, for example, perhaps trans coven witches will start a school, or you'll have there's going to be all these schools that pop up, and I that was a joke, you didn't laugh, but they're going to be the satanic school, it's not just these Christian schools, you will give the opportunity for these other
Amen.
very diverse religious schools to open up. But for me, the core of it is it's a scam. I know it's a Democratic talking point, but it is a scam. And vouchers don't work. They take money out of public schools, and they're for wealthy people because inevitably
in rural communities, like I know, just even the town I grew up in, there weren't any private schools. So there's nowhere you can go to benefit. And that's why it will.
That's a very good point.
And in the pilot too, the data that I've seen in the pilot is that the kids that have participated so far in this program are scoring worse than the kids who are not. And so that seems to be like, I mean, there may be explanations for why that is, but it doesn't seem to be working just based on
if education if our public education is failing so bad, it's time somebody step up and take blame for it.
Oh, you mean the party that's been in control for the past 2 decades?
Yeah, I mean it can be the party, it could be the administration, it could be the Department of Education. But it's time for some. We've had 2 commissioners. It's time for somebody to say, hey, look, this is what we're doing wrong. This is what we got to do to fix it. We've thrown an ungodly amount of money the last few years at education. It's time that we need to start.
What happened in 2019? No one wanted this then.
Yeah.
Like no one wants this now.
Yeah, I'm not a school voucher.
I hope you rural Republicans stick together. And if you all do, I will take you out to dinner.
There's lots of dinners going around.
Yeah, lots of dinners.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
But I think you'll see some of the rural Tennessee members that do stick together on this one. They, and again, another talking point or a point to look at this, in your rural areas, your education, your schools are your biggest employers.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Your biggest employers.
Well, okay. So just to wrap up here with a few rapid fire questions. One thing that's on your desk or in your office that's personal that it would go with you everywhere. I mean, every office. Like one thing in your office or on your desk that will travel with you to future offices or has traveled with you from past offices.
American flag.
You were gonna laugh so hard. So I have a famous constituent in my district. It is Doug the Pug. Oh, so Doug the Pug is the most famous Instagram animal, worth a ton of money, but lives in my district. And I was gifted a Doug the Pug stuffed animal, and it means a lot to me because Nashville made Doug the Pug Day. I grew up with pugs, and so Doug the Pug will be with me to every office that I take with me. Yeah.
All right. And it's soft, so if you need to throw
it's
something.
Cushy, it's cute. People walk in, they're it's unassuming. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. The biggest surprise that you've had since, and Aftyn, I know you're very new, but since joining the General Assembly.
Let her answer that one first. Let me think a minute.
Biggest surprise. I would say I think someone asked me yesterday, are you excited? Are you excited for session? And I just looked at them blankly and I said, no, I feel prepared. And I think I'm surprised at how calm and confident I feel because I think everything, up into my life, I've prepared for this moment. And I feel ready for the job. And I think that probably surprises a lot of people is like how just prepared I am and excited.
My biggest surprise is how hard, and you're about to see this, and you'll probably see it on your grocery tax bill, how hard the administration's folks, each department has what they call a liaison. They lobby. Your tax dollars are going to pay their salaries. They do not register down at the registry, but they lobby for and against our bills. And the biggest surprise when I got down here is how many of those people that we are paying as taxpayers that lobby against something that you may ask me to run or he may ask me to run, a bill that helps our community. If they don't like it, the administration folks come over and they work against your bill. And it was a big surprise and it was a big disappointment. And I ran a bill, tried to fix it, but.
What was the bill?
Well, there's been a couple of. The bill was going to make the bill that I ran to try to fix the problem was going to make them register as lobbyists, and they would have to report their salary during the time we were in the General Assembly that they were lobbying. They would have to report that to the registry, just like you or I have to report, or a regular lobbyist. And they hated. I mean, they hated on me for it, I think. Yeah. But it was. It's just something I don't think is right. If the governor don't like what we're doing, the administration don't like what we're doing, the bill, stroke a pen and veto it.
I see.
But now they come over there and they kill it in committee, and you're going to see the Department of Safety. I'll give you for an instance on a bill. There's really what I call a side by side bill. You know what the Polaris side by side are. Yeah. You see Metro using them downtown all the time, driving them on their streets. What this bill would have done, and I live in rural Tennessee, would allow you on a 2-lane highway. It's got to have seat belts, tags, blinkers, street ready. On a 2-lane highway, 45 mile an hour or less, you could ride this side by side on the road. For my instance, it's handy. I have a farm on the other side of the river, and I have to drive around. I ride that side by side. Well, I'm breaking the law when I get on Verona County Road because you're not supposed to be on a state highway with them. This bill would allow them. The Department of Safety lobbies against them. They've killed it 2 times, and you're fixing to see how that works. And there's nothing more frustrating than them in there working against your bill. You don't have nobody else against it, but they're working against it, and your chairman's, they
I guess I was surprised that my first month in office that the governor was having to respond to my grocery tax bill. He was asked in Chattanooga, what do you think of this freshman rookie's bill? He's like, I'm gonna have to see the text. But I was up here in Nashville being like, evil laugh. So, anyways, I'm grateful for the opportunity. I'm excited. I'm not, I know it's not the best work environment, but
you're gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I promise the Republicans will not let you get out of line.
What if I go to your district? What is one thing that I have to do? And Aftyn, I'm a bit more familiar with yours.
Oh my God. I have the best. Okay. I'm sorry. No offense to your district.
Ladies first.
Thank you. I have the best district in the state. So I have all of downtown Nashville. So I've got all the stadiums, the museums, the concert venues. But I would probably direct you to Madison, Tennessee, which is where all of the old country, the non-Morgan Wallen country music stars used to live, like Loretta Lynn and Patsy Cline. And they bought a bunch of property in Madison. So it's the core of old country in Nashville. And there's a lot of cool houses to see.
We've done a lot of real estate closings where we'll see in the chain Patsy Cline, like literally in Madison, which is really cool.
Sidekicks is also really good up there. Good little place to.
And you've already mentioned you've already done it. Probably Horton Park and the Duck River.
Yeah.
A day on the Duck River, a float on the Duck River is really nice.
Really nice. I agree. Okay. Well, I just want to give you guys each, an opportunity as we sort of wrap here to talk about how, the public can get involved, how your constituents can reach you. Maybe it's an election year, anything that you want to say.
How to support the campaign.
I will say, and Representative Warner, this may not come as a shock, but raising money as the youngest woman in the House, the only woman to represent Nashville right now in the House, and the first woman to represent my district in over 50 years. People do, I think there's a stigma of giving money to young women. And so it's been very difficult for me to fundraise. And so for those that are listening, if you are able to, I'd really appreciate it. And then I would say follow my journey as I try to flip some seats and win this $50 in front of me in 2024.
And Aftyn, can you say just a little clip about why is it you can't raise money after January 9th?
And where can they donate?
It's a rule that we have, which I don't think, and I don't quote me on this, but I've been told that Texas does not even have a financing registry in that state. Congress, they raise money when they're in session, but it's a rule that we have that we cannot raise any money while we're in session. I guess it kind of.
Which I would love to know. I'll go up to we have a library at the top floor.
Why don't you sit down with Speaker Sexton and see if y'all can work out a deal where we can get that changed.
Okay.
Change that rule.
Putting the ball in my court. I love it.
Her saying that fundraising is tough. Even in my district rule, I would thought that she would have been able to raise easier for her than me. But down in rural Tennessee, it's hard. It's hard for me to ask people.
Yeah. Same.
But I've gotten better at it. But if you want to be up here a while, it's something definitely that you need to be able to do is do some fundraising. I've self-funded a lot of mine, way too much. Because,
You mean for a job that pays $26,000?
Exactly.
A year?
I've put in way too much of my own money, but I care about this state. I care about the district and my constituents, and at the end of the day, my goal is to make Tennessee, a better place.
And where's a good place for people to go to see bills that are coming up, and also to watch you guys?
If you really want to know what's going on about a bill, and you can get online, the Tennessee General Assembly, then go, and you can see who's on what committees and when that committee is meeting. But committee is the best place to go. Even if there's a bill coming up and you want to speak on that bill, you have the right to speak on that bill. All you have to do is let the chairman know, I think 3 days in advance, that you want to speak on that bill. If we're having a bill on just whatever, say that side-by-side bill that I had, if you wanted to, if you were for or against that, farmers came up last time and spoke in favor of it, you can come and speak. We want to hear from our constituents, and we'd love to have people in our committee rooms seeing what's going on. But a committee room to me is a lot better than sitting on the House floor. Sure, you see the procedure on the House floor, you see how it works, but if you really want to find out what's going on, get in the committee rooms.
So if you go to capital.tn.gov, and then you can look at, there's a header for committee, and then you can drop down to Senate, House, or Joint.
Right.
And from there, you can sort of pick.
Right.
But if you pick, say, state government, and you see something that's coming up that you want to go to, where do those...
It'll have videos. It'll have like during the committee. It'll have like a live feed, or you can go back and watch. All the videos are archived, and you can go back and watch previous videos if that bill had been up before. See the talking points or the what went on with that bill.
And then people can go into...
anybody's welcome down at Cordell Hall. You come through the checkpoint through safety, and
Some days are busier than others.
They are.
And then where can people go if they want to just, watch your progress, see what...
They can go for Todd at toddfortn.com to donate, or, can put it in the mail to State Rep Todd Warner at P.O. Box 37, Chapel Hill, Tennessee.
Aftyn?
Same. You can check out my website. I think I'm the only Aftyn Behn in the entire world. So Google's a great tool.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for being on. I think it's really, it's a great start to, have you guys.
Yes, glad to come in. I've enjoyed it.
Good banter. So thanks for joining us for another episode of Climbing the Charts. We'll see you next time.